Hello, let's talk about trusting yourself, shall we? For those of you who've been in this space a while, you have maybe noticed that I've been shifting the conversation a little bit from specifically relationships to focusing our attention on your desire. Because one of the things that I've learned in my almost 50 years of being on this planet and several decades now of working with women is that we often don't listen to our desire, trust our desire, or know how to come into relationship with our inner compass in order to create life choices that support us in being the queen that we're meant to be on this planet, in this life, in this particular iteration. So for those of you who are here live, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Jenny Glick. I'm a facilitator of change and transformation for women. I'm changing how it is I talk about what I do, and formerly a therapist and certified sex therapist. Well, I'm still those things. I just don't work in those traditional ways anymore. And if you're here live, please feel free to drop a comment, a hello, a question. I will be keeping my eye on the comment feed. And if you're here on replay, hashtag replay, and leave me any questions or comments. I love reading the comments and coming back into this space and being a support, because this is a space for women to really live fully into their potential. And today we're going to talk about self-trust, because that piece is really important. So, how is it that you learn to trust yourself? On a post from earlier today, you maybe read, I asked a couple of questions. When did you learn not to trust yourself? When did you start looking for someone else to tell you what to do that might be best in your life? And how long have you been wondering if you're doing it right or if there might be a better way? And one of our group participants, Renee, mentioned that she's going to journal around those questions, which I think is an excellent idea. So definitely do that if you feel so called. One of the things that I know growing up in the United States, I know we have people here from all over the world, is that I was taught not to trust myself as a girl and as a young woman. And I don't say that in a blame way. It's just how it was, right? So I maybe had a desire to sleep later in the morning, or that I was more hungry, or that I was not quite as hungry, like really simple things like that from my physical body. And what I was told, and again, my generation, right, was if you're not hungry, finish your plate. So eat, even if you're not hungry, eat it anyway. So the cue, and it's a really subtle, simple thing. And again, none of this is about making parents wrong, or if you did that as a parent, it's fine, right? You have more awareness. And as we learn more and are able to bring more alert presence to how it is that we choose to parent our children and reparent ourselves, we will show up differently. So in that subtle practice of telling a child, I know you say you're not hungry, but you need to eat this anyway, it teaches us to not listen to our body. Like I'm getting a physical cue that I'm full. But my parent, well-meaning, has a different agenda, that they want me to have more broccoli or whatever their agenda is. And again, it's subtle, but there are little ways that we're told, even if you don't want to do this, your wanting is not to be trusted. So I don't want to get too hung up in that example about food, right? But I want to bring some light and awareness to all of the places where we're taught not to trust our physical body. A big one that I've worked for decades now with women on as a sex therapist is their desire or lack of desire for touch or sex or intimacy. And so some of us, many of us, have experiences of being adolescents or young women where we did not want to be sexually intimate with a partner, but the partner wanted that from us. And so we overrode that desire, right? And said, well, it's no big deal. So we shut down our knowing. And in that practice of shutting down our knowing, shutting down the truth that's coming up, part of what's happening is we're compromising self-trust, right? It's really important to pay attention to if you find yourself as an adult woman, a woman in midlife, and you are realizing that you don't really trust yourself, to trace it back to see how it started, not from a place of blame. You all who've been in here a while know there's no function in blame, right? But rather to bring awareness to where is it that I overrode my own innate knowing, right? Do I remember what it was like to have that knowing that I wanted to sleep later, or I didn't want to have to do that dance class, or I didn't want to have to dress out for PE and take my clothes off in the locker room with the other girls there, that felt uncomfortable, but that I forced myself to do something that didn't feel in alignment with who I was, right? Part of why it can be really hard to have these conversations about desire and self-trust is because we recognize that there are moments where there is an invitation to step beyond our comfort zone, right? Like many of you, I have raised a child and had many different iterations of my career and have worked for people. And, there have been many times in my life where I didn't want to do something. And then ultimately, it was a really good thing for me once I got to the gym, or I signed up for that graduate level course, or I moved to that new house that felt like a stretch. So part of this conversation requires great maturity so that you can be present to all of the different aspects of what it means to trust yourself and live from a place of desire, and know the difference between a mature desire and maybe adolescent lust would be a good way to say it, right? Like this morning, there was a part of me that didn't want to do the workout that I usually love to do. And that part, right? I can be aware of that part of me without that part running the show. But the only way I'm aware that there is a part of me that doesn't want to work out, but that the larger part of me that's very committed to my health and aging well, and I love flexibility, and I know I feel better after I engage in an hour-long workout, that's really the part that I want to run my life. That's my bigger desire. That's my grown-ass woman desire, right? But then there's this part that's like, ugh, I don't feel like it. My client started very early this morning. It meant I didn't have time to do some other things if I worked out. Like, that is a part that gets to have room in my life so I can hear it, I can recognize it, but it doesn't necessarily need to drive the bus, right? So in one of my programs, salons that I'm running right now, with 8 women, and we're looking at shadow, and we're looking at all the different ways that the different parts of them can show up in their life, right? So for those of you who might be new to this idea of parts, it comes from internal family systems where we have lots of different parts. And I think of it also from Carl Jung, Jungian psychology, from your archetypes. So we have a part of us that is the queen. You'll hear me talking a lot in here about the queen archetype. And the queen archetype is that part for me. The queen knows that working out is really good for her. It helps her feel strong. And from that healthy aspect, what we would call the light version of the queen, right? The healthy aspect of her, she is filled with grace and kindness and compassion because she takes very good care of herself and she has really good boundaries. And when I can live from a place where the queen is guiding my life, then I feel better. I'm a better mother. I'm a better partner. I'm a much more steady entrepreneur. I'm a good friend. When the queen is driving the bus, right? A queen wouldn't, I'm mixing my metaphors here. A queen wouldn't drive a bus, but you get what I'm saying, right? When The healthy part of the queen is not who's in charge. That would be the shadow part of the queen. And I lived in this part of me for a very long time. And again, it's just one part of many. And the shadow queen is the part that's resentful, the part that's vengeful, the part that is impatient, the part that's vain, the part that is demeaning of myself or of others, that's competitive. So that part, the shadow part of the queen, is when she is what's ruling your life, you're not living from a place of enoughness. You're not living from a place of groundedness where you're deeply caring for yourself. Instead, you're living from a place where there's not enough. And so there's this feeling of scarcity. Anxiety and fear are driving the bus, right? And that's really common. And partially why it's common is that's what many of us are fed through social media, and at least in the United States, I know it's different depending on where you are in the US, there's a steady diet of anxiety and fear and impatience and this sort of hustle, strive, effort, right? Push. So the unhealthy queen used to rule my life, and she would have said, you need to get up extra early and do your workout because otherwise you're going to gain 10 pounds and you have that reunion this summer. She would have, yes, worked out, but done it from a place of scarcity, of meanness towards me, right? I call that self-bullying or self-terrorizing. And so, sure, I would get up and do the workout, but it was from an energetically toxic place. Does that make sense? Do any of you do that in here? Post in the comments if you do, if you are familiar with that. I know some of you are. And so, although today I did do the workout, I executed, my morning the way that I had wanted it to go. I did it from a place of grace and kindness and compassion and love, and a place of enoughness, saying to myself, I have enough time. It's all going to work out perfectly, right? And it did, because my energy was in a really different place, right? And so that part of you that can show up in your life and say, I don't want to work out, or I don't want to do this, client situation that I need to do, or I don't feel like picking up the kids, or I am not sure about managing our taxes, whatever it is for you that comes up, the part that feels like, ugh, or heavy. Part of learning to trust yourself is to listen to that and to get to know what's that about. And because we live in this world that's like so fast paced, where we ignore this really important part that has some information for us, right? And the information might be, I feel a little overwhelmed, or I'm just not sure, or I need more resources, or I need more support, right? Like for me, this morning, I needed to have a few minutes to check in with my husband before he left, because that helps me feel grounded and good in the morning when we have that check-in. And I also knew that I needed to do the 45 minutes of the hour-long workout. Like for me, 45 minutes felt like a really good amount of time, so I have enough time to walk my dog. So I just listened to the part that said, I don't want to do that, and was present with how are ways that we can do this that will be really fulfilling, right? And take care of me without just collapsing into that adolescent, screw it, don't do any of it. Katie's writing in, yes, guilty of doing this. Yeah, I think this comment was from a few moments ago of doing the thing of the shadow queen, showing up and just forcing yourself. I spent most of my adult life doing that. And so, sure, I have the successful business or all the things, right? But it doesn't matter anymore to me if what's underneath that is this drive, push, this relentless focus on the outcome that completely eradicates my connection with my own heart, my own self, my own desire, right? Because who cares for me in my world? Who cares if what my body looks like, what my bank account looks like, what my home looks like, what my marriage looks like, any of that from the outside, if what I had to do to get there totally sucked the life out of me, my relationship, my desire, my authenticity, my essence, right? That part is incredibly important. There's a saying. I had owned a book 30 years ago that on the cover of it, it said, "How you do anything is how you do everything," which I still believe is true. And how you do it, right? How one does her parenting, her relationship, her business, her house cleaning, her managing of money, whatever it is, how you do those things show up a part of you that are really important for you to pay attention to. If I'm not paying attention to my finances, if I don't want to look at that, what else do I not want to look at? Right? This circles back to trusting yourself. If I don't want to look at the issues in my relationship, the struggles with my parenting, if I don't want to look at that, I'm not trusting myself. I don't trust myself enough to look at the numbers in the bank account or what's happening in my sex life or what's happening in my parenting relationship with my teen or my relationship with my aging parent. I don't trust myself to look at that soberly with a deep breath and recognize, oh, okay, there's some attention that's needed here. And that's the queen energy, right? The queen energy is not about perfection. It's about the willingness to soberly look at your life and recognize, is this in alignment with what I desire? The word desire comes from the Latin root, which means of the Father or of the divine, right? Your desire is not bad. Your desire is good. Your desire shows up your truth. And what I have found in working with women so extensively these last many, many years is that trusting your truth is where it's at. The more you can trust your truth, the more you are able to craft and co-create a life that's in deep alignment with your desire. So later this month, I will be offering a 3 free-day workshop, a free 3-day workshop. So stay tuned for that. And I will also be enrolling in a new program that's all about living from your queen, living from a place of deep desire in your life, learning how to create that kind of alignment for yourself so that you can have the kind of ripple of impact that you want to have in your family, in your community, in your professional life, and with the legacy around you. So stay tuned for that. I would love for any of you who feel so called, drop a comment and let me know, what's your relationship like with your desire? What's your relationship like with trusting yourself? If you feel like sharing from my previous post, when did you learn not to trust yourself? Do you have a moment where you remember that? Share that below and I'll make sure to circle back. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being in this space. Things are going to be moving and shaking around here lately. Coming up. And so pay attention for some new exciting things happening here. Thanks for being here. Take good care. Bye-bye.